to the bottom. We're now recording. Go ahead, Bill.
All right, good.
You better start over and tell people you have a quorum.
All right, we do have a quorum. Members of the committee that are here, Jim Bell, Paul Foley, Penny Ration, Bill Walbert, Michael Chen. I believe Amy Murphy-Carroll will be joining later. I know Paul Tully will not be joining, and I have not heard from Michael. We'll hear whether he comes in or not. Stuart, as our advisor, is on, and we do have as members Kevin Moynihan, Chief Korlikowski, Deputy Chief DeFederico, and members of the town services, Tiger Mann, Maria Copland, and Joe Zagorewski.
And Joe was the recipient for comments. So Joe, if you receive any comments by email, please tell people.
Yep. We have not received any comments from the public.
All right. So item number 3, approval of the meeting minutes from our meeting on July 8th. Has everyone received a copy of the minutes and had a chance to review them? Any further comments on the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Well, it sounds like Michael Dinan's dog votes to approve the minutes.
I think they're approved.
We need a member of the committee to report.
I was just trying to pull them up again, just to glance at them again. Does anybody know when they got sent? They weren't in the last email from Joe.
They were in the first email with the agenda.
Okay.
Tuesday? I think that was that Tuesday?
Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
They were sent out at Tuesday at 11:11.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. They were sent out Monday at 2:51.
Do you want me to read them to you real fast, Penny, or?
I'm looking at them. Sorry, my apologies.
No.
Wants to move them. They're looking good. They're looking great to me. My apologies for not being ready.
Not at all. Not at all. You read faster than I can read them. So we'll give you a few more minutes. That's absolutely appropriate.
Well, why do you want to come back to that and go back on to something else? I'll tell you.
Sure. Item 4 is let me put a star about the minutes. Item 4, progress update, presentation of the budgets for the three options. Brian, I believe you'll be presenting that to us. All right, I can see the screen well, but Brian, if you're speaking.
All set?
Good by me. Everyone else okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right.
When it says in the agenda 3 options, I'm going to try to make this concise and not confusing. We do have actually 2 options, but we have a variation on the first. So we're still working with option A and option B. And when we met last, you had asked me to go back and look at the option B with the 30,000 square foot new construction on this site. The project timeline that you see here, you saw at your last meeting. It was just a carryover from our last meeting, so there's nothing new on this slide. But on this slide, the timeline on July 8th is when we last talked. And that's when you asked us to update some items, both in the cost estimate that you're looking at for option A and the request to look at option B. So on July 14th, we did receive the updated cost estimates back from Frank Vansler. He modified option A and also provided an option B solution. So the July 28th presentation that I'm showing you now we've taken option A and split it into two options. Option A1 is the one we've been talking about, is a phased renovation while the police are occupied. The option A2 has been initiated only because we now had estimates on what the relocation cost may be. And we realized that option A could have a variation of either being renovated while occupied or renovated while vacated. So we've implemented that as our second option, to renovate but not have the police department in the building during the renovation. And then the option B was what you asked for, was demolish the existing and then build new 30,000 square foot. And that would only happen while the police are vacated. So to make it kind of simple and understandable, option A1 is renovate the existing building while occupied. And there are some, bullet points to make sure everybody agrees with what the solution includes. And it includes no relocation of the patrol functions or administration for the duration of the construction. So police administration, patrol functions would all remain at the current site and working through the renovation.
Brian, this
Yes.
is Penny. Can you just explain to me so I understand what the patrol functions include?
Yes, locker rooms, roll call rooms, all lieutenant's office, sergeant's offices, anything having to do with the patrol. And the patrol is done in shifts. So they have 3 shifts per day. So those 3 shifts would be still rotating through the police department. The detective bureau and storage would go off-site. So that would be the only thing that we're looking to get off-site, and we're anticipating that that would go to Irwin Park. The dispatch center looks to go to Darien for only phase 2, and that would be for about 4 to 5 months. Prisoner processing and holding would go to Darien for phase 2, and that would be for about 4 to 5 months. So while we say it's while occupied, it's not entirely occupied. It would only be those patrol functions and administration that would have to really gut it out for the whole duration of the construction. Other functions would be going on and off site. The detective bureau would stay off site for the entire 18 months, while other things would be going on and off site as needed.
My clarification on the dispatch. Would we actually dismantle the current dispatch council and the room itself, or would that be we are making use of Darien's secondary dispatch?
We are not dismantling anything in dispatch. We just have to remove personnel and move personnel to Darien because there's no public access to the building, and they're going to be working in and around dispatch. So we just thought if Darien was available, we'll just use Darien. And the chief has had some conversations with Darien. While nothing has been finalized, they do have additional consoles that could be utilized with some minimal transfer of technology between New Canaan and Darien. So no, we are not going to dismantle anything or renovate anything within the dispatch center.
And that means the server rooms would also not be disturbed?
That is correct.
And what about the radio infrastructure in the attic?
That will not be disturbed, but as he said, some of that technology would have to get relocated over to Darien just to assist getting radios over, radio frequencies over to Darien. So there is a little bit of scope to move some technology. The construction will take care of anything. This still is a renovate as new option, and the construction duration is 16 to 17 months for construction. That's why we're anticipating 18 months for people to get off site and back on site again. The firearms training range is a separate facility, and the covered parking for carport is still in the project, and the access control for fleet vehicles is site improvements. That would all be done under option A1. So how
Sorry, one more quick question. What about, obviously we've got a fair bit of parking going on behind the building. I'm assuming that would be your laydown area. Do we have enough parking for all the patrol functions and the administration elsewhere?
It would be tight. I think we're gonna have to utilize some ingenuity. We're gonna have to limit public access onto the site. I think we have the ability to use parking across the street for public and construction vehicles and contractors' use. So we're gonna limit site activity, but there are logistics here that still have to get ironed out between contractor and police department. Obviously, police are gonna be working 24/7 out of this site. We can't limit access on or off. We have an EMS facility that needs to get ambulances on and off. So all that still has to occur and has to get coordinated, which I think, Stuart, is why we talked about A2.
Yeah.
Would it be just easier to just say, here's the site, undertake the same construction project, but get the police department out of the hair of the contractors and vice versa? Now we can give the site over to the contractors.
Yeah.
And we just take that variable away. So now we have to think about where do they go and how do they get relocated? And some of this is still, conceptual, but I think that we've applied the same thinking to A2 as we've given to option B, because we have to move them off if we're going to do option B. So what's the thought process?
Okay.
Now the 18 months is relocation of all police functions. And we've anticipated that the PD would need 15,000 square feet for relocation. Yes, we're building a new 30,000 square feet facility, but 15,000 would be our guess for what they need for detectives, administrative patrol, understanding that that's going to have to be done for 18 months. And of the 15,000, we are anticipating that the town can find 10,000 square feet, and 5,000 square feet may have to be leased, because we don't feel that 10,000 square feet, while it's a goal that we have Irwin Park, we have other storage, there's some questions that have been raised about Irwin Park being utilized for 100% relocation of PD. Even from a planning and zoning standpoint, that will have to go through planning and zoning. It had to go through planning and zoning when the town used it for town office relocations in the past, and that was for only a daytime use. Irwin Park, if we move the PD there, it would be for 24/7. You're in a residential district. You need planning and zoning approval to do that. We just can't unilaterally say we're going to move them to Irwin Park without other town approvals to get that accomplished. So I just bring that up because we might all be thinking, yeah, Irwin Park is a good solution. Well, it would be a good solution if we can have additional buy-in from planning and zoning, which is not guaranteed. But we've just thrown it out that 10,000 square feet, the town would find a spot somewhere, Irwin Park, somewhere else, but 5,000 may have to be additional leased and fit out.
Brian, are you thinking that the town could do something creative like move daytime if 24/7 uses are problematic? You could move some daytime uses to Irwin Park and then have police functions at town hall. You're thinking, we might be able to come up with something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking the 5,000 lease space may be your public aspect. It may be putting administration there, putting some officers there for public contact, not having the public go to Irwin Park. That may relieve some concerns about nighttime activities at that location. Limit it to daytime activities. You know, I'm not the one that has the total solution. I'm just bringing up, these are things that are still needing to get resolved, if this is something that you want to continue as a concept.
Yeah, and you know, I think a lot with this is when you, I think a lot of it is just presenting it to the community in a positive way. I mean, it's kind of like you got to make an omelet, you got to crack some eggs. It's temporary, you know, it's to the benefit of all. I think a lot of it has to do with how it's presented to people. And Irwin's interesting because you really, I think you can only use the first floor because of all the ADA and stuff. I believe the second floor was completely blocked off.
The second floor could be utilized by police only. It could not be utilized by public.
Okay.
You are correct that public access would need ADA, but police use only would not require an ADA requirement. We are a temporary condition here also.
Right.
Dispatch center, that's the same concept, but go to Darien for now 18 months. And Darien would accommodate 18 months of prisoner processing and holding. Now when you say they'll accommodate it, if you bring a prisoner or anybody to Darien, it's still a responsibility of New Canaan. So you would have to make sure they're housed, supervised, fed. So there is some potential costs involved with that. It's not just that you drive them down to Darien and drive away. So that's 18 months of maintaining supervision and control of anybody that you bring to Darien.
Brian, can
They'll
we dive in?
provide the housing, but they won't provide the additional supervision. That's typical.
Can we dive into that for a second longer? Leon and John, my understanding is that some of the new regulations that have been introduced by the state of Connecticut requires us now to have a live face-to-face contact with any prisoner. I think it's every 30 minutes now. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. And we've been doing that for prisoners that have been locked up. That's based on our CALEA standard. I'm not sure if CALEA would waive that if we're undergoing a renovation and we're housing our prisoners somewhere not in our facility. That's something we'll explore. And I don't think it would be it'd be a burden for Darien to some degree if they don't have prisoners there and they have to check them like that. So we're going to have to explore that angle.
Or the alternative, I suppose, is that we have to locate one of our officers down there if we ever have somebody in one of their holding cells.
Sure, that's possible.
Yeah. So we've included costs for a fit out, and fit out is both a fit out of temporary space and relocation. So there is some fit out that is built into the budgets now for fitting out where the police department are going to be relocated to. This would be a fit out of Irwin Park. If we're moving locker rooms to Irwin Park, we have to bring some lockers over. So wherever we're sending the PD, we have to accommodate some costs to get them there for their 18 months. The construction will resolve all the items just as we are in A1. It's still going to be a renovate as new project, but the construction duration is now a 14 to 15 month instead of 16 to 17 months. We've gained 2 months on a construction schedule. So there's some cost savings to that, which I'll go into a little bit further. And we still have the firearms range, and we still have this carport, and we still have the access control on the site and repaving of the site. But it's a similar project, but these are some of the noted exceptions to A1. I think B has become pretty straightforward because we've just incorporated all the revisions to relocation that we just talked about for A2, but we're just taking the existing building, we're demolishing it, we're removing it. We have the ability to change the architectural solution if that's desired by the town. We don't have to put back exactly what's there. We put back something that was increased efficiency, and it would be a totally new exterior envelope, so we wouldn't be dealing with repairs to the existing exterior envelope. The construction duration here is back up to 16 to 18 months because we have demolition, we have new construction. We are incorporating the firearms training range into the new construction. We are anticipating still an 18-car carport, the same site improvements that we had before. I think it'll be a little bit more self-explanatory when we get back to what the costs are. For A1 and A2, the project is really the same. It's just where the PD are located. So I just wanted to run through that. For A1 is where we're phased. If it's A2, you just take the numbers off. So the contractor would have access to the entire upper floor. They would have access to this main floor. Again, there's no number shown in dispatch because there's no work in dispatch. It would just be vacated, and that space would not include any renovations. But everything else that you see here with a number on it, the numbers only relate to A1. If the police aren't there, then contractor goes into all these spaces at the same time. That's why they can save 2 months on the construction duration. So it's the same plan, same concept. This is the summary sheet that Frank sent me on July 14th. And this has incorporated within the renovation cost, this has incorporated some revisions that you had asked for last time, primarily a little bit more acoustical control on the mechanicals for the firing range, an increased landscape budget for landscaping to buffer this project from neighbors. And there's only been about a $50,000 difference in the total project costs. We're now at 11,292, 688. So that's a slight revision to what you've seen before, but it's pretty much in the same ballpark for what the A1 solution is. But he's added an option A2 deduct at the bottom of the sheet of $230,000. That would be what represents the 2-month construction duration savings. It would also include savings for temporary dust protection and some of the phasing requirements that we had in the original estimate. So it's a combination of all of the items if the contractor has a vacated site versus a phased site. So $230,000 if the building was vacated. $230,000 would come off the 11,292 number, only if you went to option A2. So the estimate still has assumptions, the same assumptions that you saw before. I don't have to go into all of them, but item 16 was the estimate now includes a $50,000 allowance for plantings. This was a comment that came out of your last meeting, and also the acoustical controls at the firing range. A summary of how we put together our budget. It's hard costs, soft costs, and contingencies. The soft costs are a percentage, but they include a lot of other project-related costs. And we've just included those as a range of anything from 20 to 30% of the hard costs. And the contingency remains at 10 to 15% of the hard costs. So those are the same numbers that we had last time. And if you plug in the new numbers, the 11,292, you're at a project of a range, taking the low range to the high range of both of those soft costs and contingencies, you're at a range of 14,680 to 16,375. So that's A1. And I'll recap all these at the end. What changes at A2? Well, we've inserted now the owner's relocation costs, and we've also added a contingency to the owner's relocation costs. Because again, we have estimated what we feel is a reasonable estimate for a relocation. But just like your project, it should come with its own contingency, because we are not sure that all of the factors, the 10,000 square feet, the 5,000 square feet, the lease space, we haven't vetted those, so there is a contingency. And the contingency that we've added for relocation is a 20 to 30% fluctuation in what we're showing as 1.498 for the owner to relocate off the site. Now you do pick up in your hard costs, you do pick up that $230,000 savings. So your project is 11,062 now instead of the other number. So we've included the savings in the hard costs, but we now have added the costs of relocation. So your total project is between 16 and 18 as a round number to get the police department off the site. Option B is taking the entire building out, taking the entire area that you have for the building and building new 30,000 square feet. And this is the cost estimate that we were given on July 14th on that. And we've made some of these assumptions on 30,000 square feet for a new 3-story building. And some of these assumptions are based on allowances. Some of these assumptions are based on historical data. And some of these assumptions are based off of the cost takeoff that they did on the detailed takeoff on A. 18,873 is what a new construction of 30,000 square feet, including a firing range, was estimated at. And the 1,498,000, how did we come out that for the relocation budget is what's detailed below. The dispatch center to Darien, we did allow $50,000 in there to get the technology and the move completed for dispatch. For relocation of detention at Darien, we did allow $135,000 for the 18 months to get prisoner processing. So this is the expenses for the personnel and moving, and what Stuart mentioned, there may be supervision requirements that personnel might have to be over there. This could be overtime expenses. But just to let you know, we didn't anticipate that Darien was going to come at no cost. So we have $185,000 associated with just dispatch and detention going to Darien for 18 months. The rental of Irwin Park, we had at no cost because we're assuming that there's no rental costs for Irwin Park, but we did have a fit out of $500,000 for that 10,000 square feet of town-owned space. So this is how we figured if the town can come up with $10,000 at no cost for lease, we have factored in $500,000 to fit it out wherever that may be. Now the lease space, we have 18 months at 5,000 square feet, $12,500 per month for $225,000 for 5,000 square feet of some space. And we fitted that out at $400,000. So wherever we find to lease, it's not going to be a move-in ready condition. So we're assuming a $400,000 cost for fitting it out. There's some design fees for fit out, and then moving costs to move in and move out. And then we have some temporary storage of offsite for records and archives. So we've added $25,000. It may not be a perfect number, but it's based off of, I think, real assumptions and conclusions that talking with the chief and talking with Darien and his conversations with Darien, I think this is a real possibility. And that's how we've achieved the 1,498 estimated number for 18 months. The construction won't take 18 months, but you need to get the police department out, fit out, moved, and then they're not going to move back until the police department is 100% done and furnished. So while the construction duration is only 14 to 15 months, we're anticipating the relocation of getting them out and getting them back would extend to an 18-month duration. So option B, we have the same hard costs, soft costs. We do have to now implement that owner's relocation cost and the owner's relocation contingency in addition to the owner's project contingency. It's the same 20 to 30% for soft costs. It's the 20 to 30% contingency for relocation. And so the numbers come out at 26.3 to 29.3. It's about a $3 million delta on what a new building on that site would cost. Let me go to another screen.
Hey, Brian, just in terms of if we're doing a apples to oranges comparison, the new building you are building in the range, right?
Yes.
So you really, if you weren't building in the range, you would have to take that down a couple $1 million if we're doing a comparisons of A1, A2, and B to do a fair comparison.
It
right?
wouldn't cost 2.3 million, but there would be a number that we would take out of that $18 million. That is correct. So,
hey Brian, it's Michael Chen. I just want to make sure I saw the numbers correctly. In the A2 case, it was 16 to 18 million all in. Is that correct? And in this case, I thought you showed 26 to 28. So it sounds like a $10 million difference between A2 and B. Is that correct?
yeah, that is correct. And that's why I'm showing you this final slide. Can you see the Excel sheet that's in front of you?
Yes. Yep.
I tried to boil this down into a kind of a simple, dumb spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet is interactive too. It has hard costs in the green bar, all your hard costs. So it's the renovation, it's the addition, it's the firing range, it's the site work, it's the carport. Those are all your hard costs. And we've broken them down into their individual components. The soft costs, we have a range of 20 to 30%. So the top line, we have used the 20% to 30%. The relocation costs, the cost of relocation is within your soft costs for A1. Your relocation for A1 is not applicable. Your project contingency is anywhere from 10 to 15%. So I've given a low and a high to these. Now, the other thing I've thrown into this chart, and only because it's a variable, is I've done A1 while occupied, but A1 without a pistol range. So the only thing I changed was I zeroed out the pistol range. Why? It's just because it's an interactive chart, and I don't know what your other solutions may be, but I've just zeroed out your pistol range. I've done A2, and I've done the same thing with A2, and then option B. So we can continue these charts, but this gives you a low and a high based off of everything that we just discussed. Now, I've given you a low and a high without a pistol range, but the low and a high with the pistol range is shown 14.6 to 16.3. You can plug in whatever variables you want into this chart, and it'll spit out a number. Now, one thing to note about all these numbers are these numbers are not really static. These numbers are all based on assumptions. And one of the assumptions is that there's a spring 2022 construction start. So if that doesn't hold, then the numbers aren't necessarily going to hold. If your contingencies want to get higher or lower, we can change the percentages in this spreadsheet, and you can see how it'll change a number to the right. So I can give you this Excel spreadsheet. I think I sent it to you as a Adobe PDF, but I can get you the interactive one so you can kind of play with it and see what happens with the numbers.
Hey, Brian.
I would like it, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great to see. I have a question. So yeah, obviously a big cost differential between brand spanking new and renovate in place. How about in terms of what we will be delivering the town in terms of a useful life of the building? Is there a dramatic difference in the useful life from basically a 100% renovation of the existing building vis-a-vis a brand new building?
As far as useful life, you're going to get the same useful life.
Okay.
As far as efficiency, you will be getting probably a more efficient building in option B. We could do some better exterior envelope. We can do some better efficiencies for things that we can't touch in option A. So you might get lower utility costs on your option B because your envelope, your mechanical systems are going to be new in any option, so your efficiencies in your mechanicals would be the same, but you might have to pump more heat into the building in option A than you'd have to do in option B. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to a simple question, but I think
Yeah, I think Brian, I think Amy and I are, from a board of finance point of view, are thinking the same thing. It's like, for an additional $10 or $11 million, what are we getting back for the taxpayers' money, right? If you're saying efficiency and you can recover the cost in 10 years, great, or less, but it's a hard sell. I'm just trying to visualize the justification of paying $11 million more if the life of the building is the same and you're getting basically a brand new building either way, but one you're demolishing, one you're not. It's
Yep.
Unless there's a justification for this 11 million, I think it's just going to be a hard sell.
I also think I think people need to be sensitive to the visual of the current building and how people feel as that plays into the whole New Canaan ambiance. And I mean, we just saw a lot of
Oh, you're
pressure.
talking about the preservationists, Amy?
Yeah,
Is that,
yeah. No, I'm just not even just preservation, just like, definitely the so defined preservationists have their view, but I think many people would be like, we kind of like how that looks. And, it could be a very hard sell to, to get rid of that building, especially, Brian, when you did mention with the renovate in place, the objective would be to put like windows back in that would be more period piece and stuff. So I don't think people should minimize the view that people would have about keeping that current structure.
Brian, just a point of clarification. I think we had talked, when you talked about the HVAC infrastructure, I thought we were keeping the boiler even in a renovate as new.
That's the only thing we're really saving. There is an asset there that still has some value for the town.
Right.
There's
Okay.
always an option to replace it, but they're relatively new. So seeing that the town has some asset there that we were anticipating that we could keep those.
Sure.
The rest of the mechanicals, air conditioning, distribution systems would be new.
And I know that you used, in an attempt to keep apples to apples, 30,000 for building option B. If in fact we're gaining efficiency, I thought we'd be gaining both space utilization efficiency as well as environmental HVAC efficiency.
I think your net,
Hence, we wouldn't probably need a full 30,000 square feet.
well, I
that-
think with
is
the
that
firing
true?
range, I think you will be at 30,000 square feet.
No matter what.
Your
Okay.
your net to gross would actually be a little more favorable in a new build because we can make it a little bit more efficient. We can cut down some wide corridors that are in there now. So your net to gross factor in your existing building is a little high
Right.
compared to a new construction option. I don't think you'd be making it a little bit more efficient, but it's still going to be at a cost of the relocation plus the demolition plus the new construction.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't avoid the relocation in option B. You can avoid the relocation, or you don't have to in option A. It's really a choice of the town.
Other questions for Brian on the spreadsheet or the presentation overall?
So Brian, this is Penny. I thought when you said option B, it included the range, but if we wanted to sort of have an option B and an option B2, if you took out the range, how much less would option B2 be?
That's a good question. Let me see if I can get a good answer.
Maybe just on this chart, if it's easy, if it's interactive or whatever, it might just be easy to add that line. Not during this meeting, but later, just so we understand.
Yeah, if I go back to this budget, for the pistol range equipment, there's $260,000 for pistol range equipment. So $260,000 plus the cost of the construction. It's whether you're just removing the equipment or whether you're removing the square footage associated with the range. Your $30,000, your 30,000 square feet could come down a couple thousand square feet if you eliminate the construction and the equipment. So that would be a number that we would we could back out. If you only take the equipment out but still save the 30,000 square feet, then all you're taking out is the 260,000.
Would we, but we wouldn't need, if we're not doing the firing range, would we need the extra square footage, or would we take that out? Or is that?
It would not be a number at 2.3 because this is a number standalone. But say your number is now $1.5 million. You could take $1.5 million out. We could add the line and take $1.5 million out. You're still at 1.498 for relocation, and then it would spit out a new low and a high.
Okay.
And as I said, if I send you this Excel spreadsheet, you'd have that capability to start to compare it with maybe other options that we haven't discussed or haven't thought about. Or other options that might be out there for new build. I don't know what those are either.
How many square feet are we using right now? I just forgot.
For which option?
Today's building has how many square feet in it?
Oh, it was.
I think it's 27. All in.
I think it's around 30 with the range though.
No.
No.
Today's building as it stands has how many square feet in it?
Yeah, I
My
have
question.
I think it's 27,000.
27 for 20.
Okay. For me, taking a range out is not an option at all, that I will not support. At the end of the day, we've got to have a range, in my opinion. And I will not support anything that does not have that.
I think to make that decision from an economic perspective, I think what we need to know is it's a clear cost benefit analysis. If we build a range, it costs us X. If we don't build a range and our officers have to go elsewhere and they have to do overtime, we just need to build that. We need to build that to demonstrate to people that it is a necessary expense because we've been functioning without it. So you can't say it's necessary. You could say it's efficient. No, but we've been doing it for years this way. So I just think you can't just, I don't think you can present it to community and say you absolutely have to have this. You have to say why you need to have it.
And we can go into that.
And build the cost benefit analysis on it.
Yeah, I can come up with that.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Leon, how long have you guys worked without a range as the New Canaan Police Department?
I think more than 10 years.
Right. So we know it can work. You can argue whether it's working, you can work better, but I think to take on this additional capital expense in building, I don't think it makes sense that you just have to have it. You have to build a case for why you need to have it. And I personally would need to understand and feel comfortable with that case to put it forth.
I'd like to have this conversation offline.
Okay.
And I'll go into those details pretty hard with you.
Just to be clear for the building committee, no one's asked me to put this chart together and remove the range. This is something that we did. We're not advocating for or against the range. I think we're just trying to give you data. So there was no one that asked me to take this out. I did it and just to show you a comparison of costs.
So this is Penny. I just wanted to say, I think it's good for us both to see it because I think it gives us more information. And Leon, we're happy to work with you, to figure out why we need this pistol range. I know it's been an item of contention, but I think we do need to build the kind of model that Amy's talking about, because if we take this project to the town bodies, we're gonna have to cost justify it. We can use with all the factors that would be involved in it.
Brian, can I, not to change subjects off the pistol range, but can I come back? Obviously, option A1 from a pure numbers perspective is appealing. My ongoing concern, of course, is the relocation to relocate or to not relocate, and in its entirety, not partially, but in its entirety. So option one versus option A1 versus option A2 would be my two comparison points. With option A1, you had indicated that your relocation costs, those that would exist, are buried inside of your soft costs. Mm-hmm. Could you put some scale as to what you've included in your soft costs in option A1 for relocation? Because to go from it's buried in my soft costs to 1.5 million plus a contingency for relocation of another 300 to 500,000. So we are going from it's buried in my soft costs to $2 million. Seems like a pretty huge number. So within A1, could you describe to us what you've got buried inside of relocation for in your soft costs?
It was taking Irwin Park and moving it and fitting it out only for office space for detectives. So we've been over to Irwin Park, we've seen it, we feel that there's a minimal cost to do any fit out for the requirements of the Detective Bureau. It has workstations, it has power, it has lighting, so it would not have any public interaction at Irwin Park, so it would really kind of be a low cost move. So there's relocation costs in A1 within the soft costs. There's a moving cost to move out and move back, but there's just minimal fit out.
So
there would be no lockers, no showers. There'd be no for the detectives. Which is fine, but I'm just saying, just be clear. And there'd be no public access. And with regards to archive and storage, that would be located over there as well?
Oh, there's been some, yes, it would. The town would provide the space for storage, and that could be, whether it's the garage at Irwin Park, that we've had some more conversations with the town. They're now using that space for storage, whether they could be vacated for police use or whether the police could find additional storage at other locations over at Irwin Park. We're just saying the solution is the town is going to come up with space for storage and detectives. We feel the detectives, yes, could go to Irwin Park. We feel that there is space for additional storage over there if space could be made available. But the fit out cost for that, Stuart, is really, just the cost of relocation.
Okay, thank you.
So, I think at this point, this is incredibly helpful, great work. And, if we're going to go forward with option A1 or A2, I think we would want to delve into the numbers a little bit more. We had public access at Irwin during the town hall renovation, and we could get into all those details. These numbers seem to me to create a pretty compelling case to renovate in place. It seems to like it's the most bang for the buck for the town. But basically, we have this other team going forward, looking at other options. I think if I'm looking at looking at other locations, if I'm looking at your option B, and I take out just the demolition, those options are going to be pretty expensive. And, you know, it's going to get all involved with the problems of changing the facade you know, the current police building, which I think is iconic in New Canaan. So I think we just need a little clarification, Kevin, from you, where you are. I'm ready to go ahead with these, but we don't want to spin our wheels and waste our time if the town's not going to support it.
Well, Penny, you know, the plan was to look at renovation hard and see what all these costs are. And as you said, this is great work. We now have a much better handle on what it means to renovate and as new. That's
right.
The alternative. And I'd like to ask Brian, you know, the building a new building on South Avenue, option B, if you did that same thing elsewhere on a site that doesn't have a lot of site work. Obviously, site work is could add $500,000 or $1 million, depending upon what the site involves. But what's your view, Brian? Keep in mind the big factor here is what South Avenue could be sold for to a developer to make it into residential housing with the iconic look of the front. You know, the value of having done the study on the envelope brick can be used for a developer to understand that that front can be used as a front of a building. And added on in the rear. The question is how many units you can get in the rear and still function with the ambulance building there. And also the environmental study that we're going to do for the renovation will be valuable to a developer. So we've talked to the leading commercial real estate broker in Fairfield County who toured the building, and you know the property could be worth $6 to $9 million to a developer. And other developers in town are buying properties and planning projects, and this is a potential residential development project next door to the South Avenue Apartments, which is senior.
Kevin, if I remember correctly, and I could be mistaken, when we had the developer presentation, I think that higher number reflected building something brand spanking new, not using that. Now I'm pretty sure that, you know, the lower range was, you know,
it's purely dependent, Amy, on how many units you can get on the rear.
Right. But because I remember, I do remember being in that conversation, and it was like, no, we're just using the space and going new. So we just need to be that clear in terms of when we're trying to do those comparisons.
Well, so to answer Penny's question further, I mean, the Board of Selectmen will now begin to function on this as far as the alternative location, and then we'll bring it to the other town bodies. So that's as soon as the library is done.
Why aren't you bringing it to us?
Exactly.
Why are you keeping us in the dark on this question? I mean, it is, as I'm understanding, we're basically looking at other school locations. We're trying to do our work.
Penny, your job is to do a project once we decide what the project is.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't have that understanding when we joined. I thought our mission was
the
to
Board
try
of Selectmen
to.
determines what the mandate is for the building committee, Amy. So
Yeah, I just don't think it was presented to us that way, Kevin, honestly. I thought it was more, I think it was more, would you get on board and help us figure out what our best options are for a police department? And then after the first or second
well, the
meeting,
reason you and
it
Michael
was
are
carved out
representing the
to,
Board of Finance. So
pardon me?
the reason you and Michael are on here is you represent the Board of Finance.
No. But in terms of the scope of the engagement, I don't think it was like to look at it more broadly.
Amy, I have a broader mandate than just the police department. Okay, as does the Board of Selectmen. So
Just saying, I don't think it was represented that way to us. And it's very hard for us to recommend one way or another when you're trying to see the different options. But so how does it work? When are we going to know what you're thinking of?
Yeah, I do think that you all should present to us. Obviously the decision is going to be up to the town bodies. The town building committee for this doesn't have the option. Whatever we present has to go forward through all the town bodies for approval. But, we need to know what's going on with the other stream, and you split it like last April, and we've had no information on it since. So we're at the end of the summer.
Penny, that's intentional. So, okay.
Well, yeah, intentional because you're trying to avoid public conflict, but I think it's time to come out and tell us what the various options are.
Hey, I got to jump, everyone. So thank you for the presentation, Brian. I thought it was an outstanding job, very helpful, very appreciative, and look forward to our next meeting. And
Michael, real fast, would you vote to approve the minutes? Because when we lose you, we may
Oh,
lose.
I make a motion
Yeah.
to approve the minutes.
yeah, well, the only question, Bill, is a technical question. I wasn't here at the last meeting. Should I abstain or vote yes? I won't object, obviously, but
Okay.
Yeah, you have one glaring error in your minutes.
So-
Brian was in.
so Bill, it's your call. But I mean, it looks fine, but I wasn't there, so I can't say that that's what happened. That's the only issue.
Okay, I've heard it both ways, to be honest with you. Back in my town council days, I had one group of people that said yes, one group of people that said no. To be honest with you, whether you can vote even if you were not at the meeting.
Okay. Well, either way, I don't object to it. How's that?
All right, perfect. Kevin, you had a, thanks,
Bye-bye.
Michael. Take care, buddy.
Sure,
Kevin,
bye-bye.
You had a correction to the minutes?
The minutes reflected Brian Humans was present at the meeting.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. Yes, and Brian, since he was the presenter. Thank you. So Penny, motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Yep. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Hey, Bill.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you.
Yeah, I could do that. Let me call you right back.
So really, this brings the going forward, right? What are we going to do going forward? We're coming out of August. The building committee has done its work with Brian Hume's amazing contribution. Brian, we can't thank you enough. The comparison chart is actually what conceptually I was thinking that this committee would produce, and you produced it for us. So thank you very much. Your work obviously is top notch, and we couldn't be more pleased with what you've done. But now it's time to compare that with the group that's been working independently of us, the town bodies on alternate sites, and whether they want to bring an alternate site forward. We're getting into September, and it's kind of time to start narrowing down what our options are going to be and decide what we're going to start bringing forward to the town bodies. Kevin, the building committee is happy to present anything, our findings to any town body at any time, obviously, and we're here to really be part of this discussion and process going forward. So you tell us what you think.
Well, I think Bill, one next step would be to have this presentation, or actually they could just watch this meeting, the replay of this meeting to get what the renovation plan is, or probably fair to have a Board of Finance and Town Council and Board of Selectmen joint meeting to review this with Brian and understand what the renovation option is. And that could be done. That could be done early September.
So what's the game plan in terms of the, back to the earlier point, the game plan on where we stand or you stand when you carved out the separate committee to looking at this versus other alternatives? Where does that stand in terms of when's it unveiled and who's it unveiled to?
Well, there's been a lot of work done, Amy. Actually, one other question I asked for Brian. Brian, what's your experience with disposing of old police department buildings? Stanford hasn't disposed of theirs, and Newtown hasn't disposed of theirs. Brian, you're on mute.
Yeah, it's not something that I have a lot of data on because it's not something that we really are involved with. The towns have repurposed other buildings, but I don't have the data on what the sale price or what they've been used for. It wasn't really within our scope.
So it's really just a real estate equation. I mean, location.
It is. I know that there's a connection between the PD and the EMS. I think everybody's aware of that, though. It's probably, that I know that the police department is tethered to the EMS, or EMS is tethered to the PD. So there are services that need to go through the current PD building. So I don't know if that complicates a sale or not. It's just something that has to be resolved the way those two buildings are acting as one.
Actually, that just raises a point, Brian, in terms of if the PD, option B was, actually, option B is probably really not on the table, but you do have public safety radio at the PD.
Yeah, there's sanitary that goes through the PD. There's a lot of things in that
Right.
option B that, could be problematic. And I don't know if that same aspect of being problematic would be, represent itself in any real estate transaction either. You do need to maintain services or make the EMS facility totally independent. So there's some costs associated there also.
Yeah, we're already planning a new HVAC system for the ambulance building but
Yeah,
I would
generator, it's
I would think the server
sanitary,
isn't
it's
necessarily a problem, but the generator.
communications. Yeah.
Hey, Brian, can you talk in your experience about the benefits of having various emergency operations, all located in close proximity to each other? So in other words, if we were going to move the police department, you would be losing the connection between the EMS and the police in terms of proximity and working together. You'd be moving the police department, I presume, further away from, the fire station and town hall. Is there any guidance that your experience in doing all these police stations that you can give us on that?
For sites, the fire department's EMS are site specific. They want to be central. They want to be in the community so they have quick access to all parts of the town. It doesn't equate to the police department though, because police departments are out on patrol and out on shifts and cruisers are distributed through the town. The siting of a police department is not as critical as an EMS or fire because they're not responding from that location. Fire and EMS respond from the site location. Police typically do not. Now they would support coming from the police department, but initial responses are typically from within the patrol areas that the cruisers are located. So that for siting public safety, fire and EMS are much more site specific than police.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, so Bill,
Yes.
what are the next steps here?
Well, it looks like we're going to be presenting.
I don't want to spin for the next 2 or 3 months either. And I would suggest that our next meeting is in person too. I think it would help a lot to be in the room all at the same time.
I would hope that's going to be the case. Right now, we're scheduled for September 9th. It's actually the Tuesday after Labor Day. It's the second Tuesday of September. So that is our current scheduled next meeting. And, as far as our committee is concerned, we've done what we've now delivered, what we've been asked to deliver. I mean, there is a chance of we could, vote to do some more hazardous material inspections and abatement estimate. That's another item on the agenda if we go forward with that. But really, it comes down to the other possible scenario of an alternate site if it's proposed by the town bodies, and and to take them all as a group. I think we're ready to present all town bodies with our findings, whether that's in a formal meeting or however we decide to do it, and then to weigh that against the other potential alternative if one is brought forward. I think a back of the envelope number would have to be in the low $20 million range if you assumed another site, take it out of cost of potentially selling the current site. People can certainly fine tune that, but that's, they all have to be weighed out together. Obviously, also an alternative site has probability. You have to weigh the factor of probability of getting through town bodies, and a new site would also have a lower probability or lower chance of town approvals potentially than renovating the existing building, which would probably have the lowest chance of meeting a lot of resistance, just speaking off the top of my head.
Bill, and on top of that too, I think there's the time value of money. Because certainly police department is where it is right now. People are used to it. If you go to a path to try to move it, I think it will take much, much longer.
Mhm.
Hey, Bill, I gotta leave, but on the other hand, I don't think you ought to anticipate an in-person meeting in September. You're gonna be, what's
With
currently
the,
happening.
I think you're
Okay,
right.
to say, I think you're probably right. And Kevin, so Kevin, it really, from our committee's perspective, it really comes down to when do you want to bring forward, if you do, the potential for another site. I know you were sort of shooting for September. Is that still your hope?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, are you gonna come with the architect then to our September meeting and present? I mean, we just want to know what's going on, Kevin, and I think it'd be, I know you guys have done some good work.
Getting, we're getting, because I keep saying, is it the same building? We're going to have the same useful life, because that's very important, right?
Yeah.
So why do we meet? What's the point of us meeting if we don't even know what the broader picture is? We certainly, I know the Board of Finance would appreciate an update of where we are. But we're only going to we only can look at half the pie and say, this is what we have here. And we don't want to be in the position of viewed as torpedoing another option. We don't even know what the other option is. So.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, hi, Penny, welcome.
Hi, sorry.
Yeah, funny. I know. So it is. So Amy and I were just talking about next steps, and we've done what we've been tasked to do. Brian Hume has done an amazing job for us, and Joe, just amazing help. Thank you so much, sir. And our job now is to present it to the town bodies what we've done, and more importantly, if for the big picture, or just as importantly for the big picture, to weigh in on any other alternatives that are going to be brought forward by the town. Kevin has, as you heard, he's been committed to a September discussion of that. Whether that's going to be, just from a logistics perspective, right now we're scheduled September 9, which is the Thursday after Labor Day. I think we'd be okay with moving that meeting back if that, helped the town, if they were going to present something, an alternative, have everything lined up and give us what they, talk to us about what they have. So, because right now I think our work is done, except for letting the rest of the town know what we did. And until the town decides whether they're going to bring forward another alternative to be considered. Is that fair?
But it's a crazy way to work, because we don't want to come forth looking like we're spoilers or trying to undermine a different alternative. All the alternatives should be presented. We should look at them holistically, right? And so, but for us to present, it would seem odd to me that for us, but we could do it. Present to the Board of Finance and Town Council in September. This is where we are in terms of options, the relative options we have at the current site. And maybe we just do that. And then, they can, Kevin's group can come and throw it out later. And maybe, because what I don't want to see happen, and I see it happening with the library, is you get so muddled down with all these different factions that you keep pushing the date back. We have the police department that we know is in bad shape. 5 years ago, we did a building study and said, this is a dog, we got to fix it. So I don't want the police department be pushed back another year or two while we just, let's get this going.
I couldn't agree more, Amy. And I think when I talk to our committee privately, that's our number one concern and job, because we swing and miss on this. Who knows when we come back to the police department? And so we have to, in my opinion, we want to present a project that has a very high likelihood of success in this community. And we, I think, have created that, or have done work on something that could happen and is a good project. And with details, certainly details to be ironed out going forward. But that's worth a lot. That's a bird, we got a bird in hand, and we want to make sure that we don't, try for something else that potentially may look better to some people, but turns into a swing and a miss.
Well, maybe we should get on the Board of Finance agenda for September and give a 15-minute update.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as we were going through the whole discussion is, we should be on the board. I mean, Kevin, instead of Joy, well, you know what? I'd rather personally, knowing how these things work and these group meetings work, let's get 15 minutes on the Board of Finance, 15 minutes on the town council, just to let them know what we're up to. And I think they would appreciate that. And then we can decide who's going to do that presenting. I mean, I'd hate to drag Brian down here for all that stuff. I don't think.
I think we want Brian. I have to say,
if
we're going to go in front of if we're going to go, from my experience, going in front of the town bodies, it's going to be more than 15 minutes if we're actually presenting this. And I think that we want Brian to go through the whole thing. And so we might want to think about some nits on the presentation, like in the soft costs. I think we all decided pretty much that we want an owner's rep. I don't think it's going to change the numbers, but we probably want owner's rep in there. Because somebody's going to be working on this 40, 50 hours a week. And Joe, I don't think you have the time to do that. So I don't want to set up that expectation. So I think we could, Joe, do you talk to Brian? Can you get him to add that into the presentation? Just as a soft cost, the owner's rep?
Sure.
And I agree 100% with you, Penny. I was just throwing out alternatives because in the end, doubt equals delay and confusion. And if any of us presented this, they would still come up with a question that we go, let me get back to the architect on that. And that is not what we want to see happen. And so it is much better to have Brian on that, to do the presented. I could not agree more.
Yeah, and I'm sure he could Zoom. I'm sure he wouldn't have to come down. I'm sure he could Zoom in.
They might be meeting, who knows? I mean, we canceled the fireworks. I don't know how many people are going to have to go back to Zoom meetings. And I do miss meeting in person. But I've actually have to quarantine for our next meeting because I'm supposed to quarantine before my son's wedding. Yeah, I think that would be, maybe we move forward with that.
Yeah.
Do you want me to
maybe you want to talk to Michael about it and see if
I'll talk to Michael and we'll see if it makes sense to get on the agenda and then we'll get back to you guys. But I think people would be very interested in it,
Yes, absolutely.
And I think the other thing we probably want to do is just round out the numbers in the presentation a little bit more. I mean, a lot of times when they do these estimates, they have these very precise numbers because it's how they've built it. But we want to say more, it's like this is a 14 to 16 million option. This is a 11 to 13 or whatever. And then I did also want to know, just take
it to 3 digits, right? Basically, Joe, take everything to 3 digits, 16.7, that's fine.
Right. And then who said they couldn't support a project without a fire range? He was off and then came back on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do really think that it warrants a PV analysis.
It has to. There's no
and it's
way.
Not hard to do.
Mike, I agree with you completely. And I actually did an analysis maybe 10 or 15 years ago at one point. And I agree with you. If there were some great viable alternatives, then like, for example, Wilton was about to build a range, I would be the first one to jump on that. I think what the police department stopped using their range because it was condemned, and the costs of bringing it back online were exorbitant, mostly because it was a range that was too short. It no longer met state specifications. So to bring that back online was completely cost prohibitive.
Right.
And so consequently, I think the police department would prefer to have it on site or close by. And the police chief has begged Darien to let us partner with them, and Darien has turned us down over and over and over. Wilton is looking to build a new range, and of course, my suggestion would be let's have Wilton cover some of the costs of our $2.5 million range, but have it in New Canaan. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah. Okay, so
That's
how
the
do
best
how do we
of both worlds.
facilitate that discussion, Stuart? How do we facilitate and see if that would be, because that's a very different thing. If it's a 2.5 million and only 1.5's us or something, that's a very
Right.
different thing.
Right.
How does that work? Is that through Leanne? Who, how do we see if there's interest in that?
Yeah, I mean, I can do the analysis. It's not hard. But you know, keep in mind there are certain, I guess, unknown costs, if you will. There's benefits of a range that you just can't show fiscally.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can list the non-monetary benefits, but
Right.
in terms of seeing if we can do a partnership with another town, how do we see if that's in the cards? Because that makes a big difference, you know?
Yeah. So far there is nothing that is close enough to us, PD wise, that would be willing to partner. Darien's not interested because
They have one.
and there's certain restrictions on their range because of noise and more use would complicate their operations. You know, other PDs are larger and they use their ranges a lot more. And I don't.
What about Wilton?
Wilton doesn't have anything right now. They might have an outdoor range, but they don't have anything. They're talking about building something, and I think they were talking about building it on the Ridgefield line. So that really, you know, right now what we do is if it maintains, meaning what we use right now is a range in Ridgefield and a range in Danbury outside. And, you know, I mean, the unknown is if those ranges if we aren't able to use those ranges in the future, obviously that's a complication. But if Wilton were to build a range and say, hey, New Canaan, we'll share it with you if you give us $500,000, it kind of wouldn't make sense. Because the real usefulness of it is having it local and close so that we can save costs and do training while officers are working, rather than have them commute up to the line in Ridgefield or Wilton.
But that's what we've been doing, right? You've been doing that, right?
Yeah,
For 10 years, you've been doing it. So it's not ideal, but it works, right? And the risk is you may not have access to it in the future, right?
That is the risk, Amy,
Yeah. And it's also, right now we're doing minimal training, meaning what we need to by state guidelines and our standards, because we just don't have the access that we need. So obviously if we have our own range that's close by, the access would be more or less unlimited, and we could do a lot more dynamic training at no cost.
Right, which when you get into the cost benefit analysis, it's, you know, the biggest variable is what would you pay for excellent A training versus B- training, and the cost of that. Nobody likes fires, but we pay to make sure that our fire department is well trained, you know, for everyone's safety. And you know, the same would hold true with a firing range. So yes, we want a cost benefit analysis, but you have to put in a very big variable to account for public safety.
Well, okay. So I look at it, to me, there's like 3 different things on the table here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe 4. 4 is operate like we do and just figure out, you know, just, 1 is we build a range that's just for us to use and we do a heck of a lot more training. 2 is that we seek to see if there's any other town that might be interested in going joint with us on this range at some level. And 3 is, you know, you're saying Wilton thinks of building one with Ridgefield and the Ridgefield line. Does it make sense for us to get involved with one of those? So it's like 4, status quo, build our own, have someone help offset ours, or 3, get involved with building something else, right? And that's what we have to get a handle on, I think. And I don't know how, I mean, I know people have been talking about doing regional ranges forever and nothing really happens. You know, would we feel comfortable being the host of kind of sort of a regional range behind our building? Like if, you know, Wilton or Ridgefield wanted to get involved in it. I'm not saying one together, but how do we in a timely fashion kind of see where all those might stand?
Yeah, I mean, there was a conversation with Wilton officials recently, and they didn't seem interested in coming to New Canaan, but they wanted us to go to the line, Ridgefield Wilton line. So right now
So-
that doesn't seem like an option.
But so if there was something that was built at the Ridgefield Wilton line, and that the 3 police departments got involved in funding it jointly, do we then just get a better facility? Because it's, you know, three, I know people have to travel to it, but you got 3 organizations contributing to it. Can you build a facility that is, you know, better in such a way that it's worth people making the trip?
Yeah, in theory, it'd be a better facility, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you can get all 3 municipalities to agree, and cost sharing and all that, and which can be challenging in our area. I haven't seen anything like that work in Fairfield County.
Leon, which town has a private-public partnership? Not that I'm promoting that in any way, shape, or form, but I thought that was Ridgefield.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So Ridgefield doesn't need a range then, do they?
No.
Okay, so they're at, so it's just
So
Wilton.
it's really Wilton and New Canaan that need ranges.
Yep.
Mhm.
And Wilton so far is not interested in traveling to New Canaan. They want us to travel to them.
Is that the Wilton Police Department or is that the Wilton town bodies?
Yeah. Good point.
Combination.
Good question.
It's a combination of both.
Do they have a site location that
I
they're
believe-
thinking of?
I believe they do. They haven't. I think it's like I said, I think it's on the Ridgefield Wilton line. I think they have a parcel there.
Okay.
I mean, it's a matter of, you know, cost benefit. Once again, you know, are we going to spend $750,000 or $500,000 or more as a cost share? Does that make sense? I mean, that's just.
Yeah, and then you have your transportation and all those things, but.
Yeah. I mean, there wouldn't be any.
It's
It'd
so
be better-
silly that we can't have a regional one. I mean, come on, this is
Well-
everybody like on their turf. It's like, it just makes sense that we should have a regional one. Because
Well, that's-
even if you have your facility on site, this is not something that's used many hours of a day. I'm not saying when you use it, it's not important, but if we, just in terms of the capital plant,
Right.
it's not
Right.
well used if
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
just one police department.
Unfortunately, there's a level of dysfunction
Yeah.
from our state and an inability to create regional training initiatives like that.
Yeah.
And they, frankly, it's a missed opportunity, unfortunately.
Yeah, you could talk to Brian Humes on that because he did give his opinion that everyone talks about it, but everyone only wants to be the host, and then it all falls apart.
No one's to drive. Yep.
Joe, you know, as far as the last thing on the agenda, we now don't have a quorum, so I don't think we can officially vote on the contract for Fuss and O'Neill. Frankly, is that, Penny, you agree with
Yeah.
that?
Well,
Actually, no, I don't agree with that. I believe once you have a quorum, you have, even if somebody leaves, you have a quorum for the entire meeting.
Whoa.
But
See, it's good to have a lawyer on a committee.
I think that's what we determined previously, but I mean, we don't have Jim to present it or anything like that with Fuss and O'Neill. We don't know what they're doing and the whole scope of it. So I think
Well-
that maybe we could always have a special short meeting to deal with that and be able to go through it in detail.
Yeah, if it was an emergency, or if the time was of the essence, we could call an emergency meeting to give it the discussion it's due. Joe, what do you got? What do you
so I did send out the invitation. Jim Beal hasn't been all that involved in the scope of services. Basically, this is a very highly regulated activity. So the inspection will be conducted to meet the EPA and the national emission standards. And it's very standard, and it's $7,785. I don't know that we need committee approval to do it. I just did it as a more of a
Courtesy?
as a I want to say courtesy, but as you.
No,
guys
I
are
think
told
actually,
it. You
I
had
think we do
requested
need
it.
committee approval to spend the money that's out. I think we do need committee approval. I think that if you look at the motion that we had the last month, we actually, we authorized Jim Bell to do it. That was in
Oh,
the
okay.
minute.
Yeah, no, it was authorized for $100,000. I didn't
Right,
realize that
but-
was just Jim, but
But I think
However you want to do it, that's fine.
I mean, I'd like to know what kinds of things that they're gonna be looking at. I mean, just from experience, past experience with building projects with this, I'd like to see the draft contract.
It's in the email. It's in the second email that I sent out.
Yeah. So clearly we're not ready.
Yeah. Which is fine. So as soon as the committee tells me to release it, it's under 10,000. Kevin can just sign it once you guys have given your go ahead.
Who are you working with at Fuss and O'Neill?
Fuss and O'Neill, let's see.
And just to let you know, I mean, my experience, from what I know, Fuss and O'Neill is a terrific organization. So
and we've used them before, and Bill Osman recommended them. And we've used other contractors, but these guys are the right ones for a project of this size. We've been working with Eduardo Marquise.
Okay, I don't know him, but I know the firm is excellent. So thank you.
Just so, for whatever it's worth, we approved the project moving forward. We have the funding. It's less than 10,000 so that Kevin could sign off on it. We have the proposal, the draft proposal in our emails. What, only in the interest of time, what would the committee not be able to get if we just said, you know, Joe, go forward? Just in the interest of time, I have no vested.
I certainly am okay with just moving forward, but I didn't want to, if Penny thought that, and I have not talked to Jim Bell about this. I've spoken to Jim about a few things, but I did not speak to him about the Fuss and O'Neill contract. I just want to make sure that everyone's on board. Do you want me to talk?
I got on late on the call.
Okay.
This contract is for what? Is it what?
It's really just to get a handle around our environmental risk.
Fine.
Okay.
Yep. Sure.
70, all right.
I think to stay within what we approved previously, we need to make sure that Jim approves it.
All right. Well, I'll call Jim.
Hey, can I jump off? I am so.
Yes.
Okay, goodbye.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. So the contract, I'll talk to Jim, and I think given everything else, it should be no problem if you know, signing off on that. Penny, I'll just I'll talk to Jim and give you a call, and then I'll call Joe. Is that fair? I don't think anyone else.
I guess, Joe, can you tell me, how did I'm looking at the scope of this right now. And a lot of the stuff with PCBs is visual only, which you know, seems fine, but I would just, you know, there's no requirement to test for PCBs that I know of. If you go start testing for PCBs, you get into a hole and you find them. You get into a whole different range. It's just I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't. It's just a pretty tricky area.
Sure, and if you want me to arrange a call with the hygienist, I can do that as well. But I think the thought process was it was just going to be presumed and handled like it was PCBs, like specifically the window caulk and things that we knew we were going to touch. It was going to be handled in a manner that was consistent with the standards that are required by the EPA, and then that way instead of testing. So that was the approach.
Well, that's all. We did a lot of that at Saks. You know, just whatever it was, we were going to take it to certain landfills and just handle it that way. I mean, I think it is. I don't know. I mean, I think somebody on the committee, if this is what we're doing, we ought to have an in-depth conversation just with Fuss and O'Neill about it, just to understand exactly what they think they're going to do and what they're going to find, and how it would increase the costs. Because I don't think Brian included any fees for potential PCBs.
Correct. Yeah, he hasn't. That's not considered, whether it could be absorbed in the 30% or not. That, you know, we'd have to come to that decision.
I don't know, I just like to hear like what they've done, make me feel better to know this is an approach that they've taken on a lot of other police stations and that we're in accordance with everything. You know, things with hazardous materials have gone awry in this town from time to time.
They always do. They're always hidden behind a wall or covered by a previous renovation. So that's the nature. That's the nature of them throughout the world, not necessarily to just the town.
So Bill, then maybe, because Penny raises some good points, maybe the solution is to have a special meeting and have the organization come in and actually present their draft proposal, and you know, it'll be maybe a 30-minute meeting, but having them present it and have some questions asked, and then maybe get to an approval point.
Yep. I'm cool
I
with
just would hate to wait another month before we
Yeah.
approve it, that's all.
No, I agree. I mean, I just, because if there are issues there, you know, we want to know about it, right?
Right, we'd want to know as soon as possible.
it. Okay.
Hence, to move this forward as quickly as possible would be really vital, it seems to me.
Okay. Well, I'll give Jim a call. We'll find out, Joe, and we'll coordinate to potentially set up a special meeting to discuss this process and the potential contract.
Excellent.
All right. Anything else?
No, thank you all.
Thanks, take care now.
Sorry about the confusion with the meeting. Yep. Take care.
Bye now.
Thank you.